Hello everybody, welcome to the show. Please hit the subscribe button and give this episode a thumbs hell. Watch the Alana Honey Boo Boo Thompson was never meant for an ordinary childhood because from the moment she first stepped onto a tiny pageant stage with oversized confidence and a sparkle in her eyes, the world felt an unexpected jolt of personality that most children her age could never command. Her early days in rural Georgia were simple, loud, and full of the everyday chaos that comes with a big Southern family, but everything changed when cameras enter her life, turning a little girl's world into a worldwide spectacle. She became a phenomenon overnight, a reality star embraced for her humor, her boldness, and the loud, vibrant energy that kept viewers glued to their screens. People laughed, people quoted her one-liners, and people followed every episode as if they were witnessing the rise of a new kind of American celebrity. But behind the glitter and catchphrases, young Alana was experiencing pressures that no child should have to confront, because the spotlight that lifted her up also placed her under a microscope, creating expectations and judgment she never asked for. Her family dynamic, which had always been messy, noisy, and unpredictable, suddenly became content for millions, feeding a cycle of fame that grew faster than any of them could control. Alana's reality show brought money, opportunities, and nationwide attention, but it also brought tension, arguments, and misunderstandings within the family, especially for her mother, Mama June, who struggled with personal decisions that shaped the entire household. Fame came without a guidebook, without a warning, and without a brake pedal, and while fans enjoyed the chaotic fun, none of them truly understood the emotional cost that shaped Alana's growing years. Public perception of her was divided. Some adored her and cheered for her confidence, while others criticized her appearance, even at a young age, speaking with harshness and cruelty that should never be directed at a child. Through interviews, school experiences, and day-to-day filming, Alana learned to smile for the camera even when she felt overwhelmed, because the brand of Honey Boo Boo was expected to be funny, energetic, and unbothered, and she felt the pressure to satisfy those expectations no matter what she was actually going through. Her childhood memories didn't come from playgrounds or sleepovers, but from production sets, bright lights, and constant noise from directors, producers, and camera crews. She grew up faster than she should have, understanding adult problems before she was ready for them, and carrying the weight of a family that depended heavily on the image she put out to the world. As the family's fame grew, so did the fractures within it. Mama June's decisions, financial struggles, complicated relationships, and personal battles began to spill out beyond the TV screen, turning private pain into public entertainment. Alana watched as trust within the home weakened, as arguments intensified, and as the weight of maintaining a public persona clashed with the chaos happening behind closed doors. Her older sister Pumpkin eventually took on responsibilities far beyond her age, stepping in as a caretaker, advisor, and emotional anchor when things with their mother became unpredictable. For Alana, this period was confusing because she loved her mother deeply, but she also understood that stability was slipping away from them and she had no control over it. Meanwhile, the media sensationalized every family issue, turning their real pain into clickable headlines, leaving young Alana to deal with the emotional aftermath of stories she never want. As Alana entered her teenage years, the public's focus shifted from her personality to her body, something she had never been prepared for, because she expected the world to remember her for her humor, her spirit, and her resilience, not for her weight or appearance. Online comments became brutal. Strangers wrote paragraphs about her body, her eating habits, and her future as if they knew anything about her personal life, health, or struggles. These comments affected her deeply, even though she often acted unaffected in public interviews, because she knew people expected her to be the same fearless Honey Boo Boo they remembered from years ago. She spent nights scrolling through hurtful posts, wondering why grown adults felt the need to tear down a teenager who was simply trying to navigate fame, school, and a fractured family all at once. She felt pressure to fit into society's standards, but she also felt resistance within herself, because she wanted the world to understand that body confidence does not come from being perfect, it comes from being unapologetically present as yourself. She fought internally between wanting to change to satisfy the public, and wanting to stay true to the real Alana, who valued joy, humor, and authenticity more than anything else. As Alana continued to grow older, the expectations placed upon her only became heavier, because people were still judging her based on the image of Honey Boo Boo instead of seeing the young woman she was becoming, and she felt trapped between who she had been portrayed as and who she truly was. Every interview, every social media post, and every public appearance brought new waves of comments from people who assumed they had the right to criticize her life choices, her body, and her future, as if her identity belonged to the public rather than herself. She struggled to understand why society allowed the world to pick apart a young girl's body as if it was entertainment, and why strangers felt comfortable making assumptions about her health and lifestyle without knowing her reality. But even with the negativity, Alana kept trying to push forward, because deep down she believed that she deserved to be treated with the same respect afforded to anyone else growing up under the constant gaze of a harsh online world. She learned to toughen her exterior to protect herself from the emotional damage that came from relentless scrutiny, but inside she carried insecurities that she never revealed to the cameras. She felt the pressure to stay strong for her family, but she also felt the need to carve out her own identity separate from the Honey Boo Boo legacy. While many assumed Alana's fame would fade with time, she was quietly working on her next chapter, hoping to move beyond reality television and explore new creative opportunities, including acting, something she had always been curious about. When she received the chance to participate in a film project, it sparked a new excitement within her because it was finally something she could pursue, not because of her childhood persona but because she genuinely wanted to challenge herself and grow. She spent countless hours practicing lines, learning about character development, and trying to understand the emotional depth required to perform in a scripted environment after years of unscripted reality content. The film set offered a new kind of experience where she didn't have to act like Honey Boo Boo, she could simply be Alana, and that alone felt liberating because for the first time she was exploring a career path that had nothing to do with the past that defined her for so long. She worked closely with directors and co-actors who supported her growth, watched her commitment, and encouraged her to trust her instincts as an actress because they saw potential in her that she had never explored. This world, the more she realized that acting could be a permanent part of her future, and she was determined to show the world that she was capable of more than easy jokes and childhood catchphrases. Despite her emerging career and public life, Alana was still a student trying to manage schoolwork, social interactions, and the demands of being a public figure all at the same time, which created constant stress. It was hard to focus on school assignments when her phone buzzed non-stop with notifications from journalists, producers, and fans, but she knew she needed an education because she refused to be someone who relied solely on former fame to survive adulthood. Walking through school hallways brought mixed reactions from peers. Some admired her, and others whispered behind her back, making her feel isolated even in a crowd. She found comfort in a small group of friends who treated her like a normal person, not a celebrity, and she held on to those relationships tightly because she needed genuine connection in a world filled with artificial attention. At home, she tried to help Pumpkin with responsibilities, especially after Pumpkin became her guardian, which added another layer of pressure because she didn't want her sister to feel overwhelmed or alone in handling the family. Balancing school fame and family obligations felt like walking on a tightrope, but Alana kept going because she believed that pushing through these challenges would eventually create a life she could be proud of. Social media. Alana often battled loneliness, self-doubt, and anxiety because growing up in the public eye meant she never had the chance to discover who she truly was outside the expectations of millions. She would lay awake at night thinking about the girl she wanted to become and the girl the world expected her to be, and the clash between these identities left her feeling disconnected from herself. Even though she maintained a confident gaze, she felt emotionally exhausted from trying to prove her worth to a world determined to misunderstand her. She had moments where she wished she could disappear from the spotlight for a while just to breathe and restart, but she also knew that her career and family depended on her staying present, so she kept moving forward even when it hurt. She tried writing, journaling, and talking to trusted people in her life to cope with emotional pressure, but nothing fully erased the weight she carried. Still, she promised herself that she would continue fighting because she refused to let society define her story or determine her self-value. She knew she was stronger than the hurt, and she believed her struggles would someday become a source of inspiration for others facing similar battles. As Alana slowly matured, she realized that staying silent while the world insulted her only gave her critics more power, so she began learning how to fight back, not with anger but with confidence, resilience, and a commitment to loving herself despite the negativity constantly surrounding her. She started understanding that people who hide behind screens often project their insecurities onto others, and that their cruel words were not reflections of who she was but reflections of what they lacked within themselves. This realization became a turning point because instead of crying alone or pretending she didn't care, she began developing a mindset that allowed her to rise above judgment and carry herself with dignity even when the online world tried to strip it away. She practiced positive affirmations every morning, reminding herself that her worth did not depend on strangers who knew nothing about her life circumstances or challenges. And she found strength in recognizing that her journey was uniquely hers, not something for the world to rewrite. The more she embraced self-acceptance, the more she realized that confidence wasn't about looking perfect, it was about walking into the world with the courage to exist unapologetically, equally as she was. Body positivity became one of the most important parts of Alana's personal transformation, because she wanted to redefine how she viewed herself and how young girls around the world might learn to view their own bodies. She recognized that her platform gave her the chance to change narratives, encourage self-love, and reject the toxic beauty standards that had hurt her for years. She started speaking publicly about her journey, discussing the challenges she faced, the insecurities she battled, and the ways she was learning to love her body step by step, even during the hardest moments. She wanted people to know that confidence doesn't appear magically, it grows slowly through patience, compassion, and the willingness to forgive yourself for not being perfect. Her words inspired thousands of young fans who had struggled with similar issues, and she realized that her voice had power far beyond entertainment. It had emotional weight, it had truth, and it had the ability to uplift others who needed hope. Through interviews, live streams, and honest conversations, she committed to showing the world that flaws do not diminish value, and that real beauty comes from authenticity, not from filtered images or unrealistic societal standards. As her personal growth continued, Alana eventually confronted the need to have difficult conversations with her family, especially her mother Mama June, whose struggles and decisions had caused emotional wounds that Alana carried quietly for years. These conversations were not easy because they required honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to acknowledge pain that had been ignored in the past. Alana wanted closure, but she also wanted healing for herself and for her mother, and she understood that healing could not happen without truth. She expressed how abandoned she sometimes felt, how the instability affected her childhood, and how she had spent years pretending to be strong when inside she felt fragile and lost. Mama June listened, apologized, and admitted to her own mistakes, creating a moment of emotional release that Alana had needed for a very long time. Even though forgiveness would take time, building trust again would be slow and complicated. Alana felt lighter knowing the truth had been spoken aloud and the process of emotional repair had finally begun. These conversations strengthened her bond with Pumpkin too, because Pumpkin had been her protector, her guardian, and her emotional anchor during the darkest moments, and Alana never took that for granted. As her senior year approached, Alana started thinking seriously about her future because she wanted to build a life that was strong and far more stable than the one she grew up in. She explored different careers in nursing, journalism, acting, and digital media, and she took her studies more seriously than ever because she wanted options. Real long-term options that didn't depend on fleeting fame. She dreamed about attending college, experiencing a fresh start, meeting new people, and discovering a world where she could be known not as Honey Boo Boo but simply as Alana Thomp. Young woman with ambition, intelligence, and a story shaped by resilience. She thought often about what it would feel like to walk freely on a college campus without paparazzi, without judgment, and without the weight of her past identity, because she longed for normalcy even for a little while. Her desire to grow, evolve, and break free from the limitations of her childhood fame became her strongest motivation, pushing her to focus on building a future that reflected her growth, not her trauma. With each passing year, Alana gained more emotional independence, learning how to make decisions that reflected her values instead of the expectations placed upon her by others. She began managing her own schedule, handling her own opportunities, and setting boundaries that protected her mental and emotional well-being. She became more selective about who she trusted because she had learned from experience that not everyone who smiled at her had good intentions, and she guarded her heart more carefully than before. This independence empowered her to explore the world with curiosity instead of fear, and to build friendships that were meaningful, honest, and supportive. She realized that true growth comes from taking responsibility for your own life and refusing to let past trauma dictate your future path. With every step forward, she felt herself becoming stronger, more aware, and more capable of achieving the dreams she once thought were impossible. As Alana moved deeper into her late teenage years, she began reclaiming her identity with a level of determination that surprised even herself, because she no longer wanted to live in the shadow of a childhood persona that the world refused to let go of. She started introducing herself simply as Alana Thompson, choosing to separate from the image that reality television had shaped for her for so many years. She wanted freedom from expectations, freedom from stereotypes, and freedom from the old narrative that people kept repeating about her life. She understood that Honey Boo Boo was a character that entertained millions, but she also knew that her real story was far more layered, emotional, and complex than the world ever saw. This realization gave her the confidence to rewrite her own future and to show people that her value did not come from being a TV personality but from being a human being with depth, ambition, and dreams. She focused on personal growth, learning, self-discipline, emotional maturity, and inner peace, and she began seeing herself not as a product of fame but as a young woman finding her place in the world on her own terms. Alana spent many nights reflecting on her past, trying to understand how the events of her childhood had shaped her emotionally, because she wanted to become stronger, healthier, and more self-aware as she entered adulthood. She learned to face painful memories without running away from them, recognizing that growth often requires confronting what hurts the most. She acknowledged the instability of her early years, the emotional absence she felt at times, and the pressure she carried to hold her family together even when she was the youngest in the house. Instead of allowing those experiences to break her, she used them as fuel to build resilience, because she knew she never wanted to feel powerless again. She started working on her communication skills, learning how to express herself clearly without fear or hesitation, and she discovered that speaking her truth gave her a sense of freedom she had never experienced before. This emotional strength allowed her to create healthier relationships, boundaries, and expectations for herself, because she finally understood that she deserved to be surrounded by people who respected her heart, not just her name. As Alana continued to evolve, the public slowly began noticing the change in her, because her confidence, authenticity, and emotional maturity were impossible to ignore. She started appearing in interviews with a calm, self-assured presence, showing the world that she had outgrown the chaotic image associated with her childhood. Her social media presence transformed too, as she shared more thoughtful messages encouraging body confidence, self-love, and mental health awareness instead of just posting for entertainment. Fans began supporting her more genuinely, recognizing that she was fighting a difficult battle against online cruelty and personal struggles while still maintaining her sense of humor and humanity. Even critics who once mocked her appearance found themselves surprised by her strength because she refused to shrink into silence or allow negativity to define her future. This shift in public perception motivated her to continue advocating for herself and for others who grew up feeling judged, misunderstood, or underestimated because she knew how painful those experiences could be. Beyond emotional growth, Alana also became committed to improving her physical health, but she made sure her journey was about wellness, not about pleasing the public, because she wanted to feel better for herself, not to meet anyone else's standards. She worked toward forming healthier habits, eating better, sleeping properly, and managing stress more effectively because she understood that mental and physical health were deeply connected. She refused extreme diets or unrealistic changes because she wanted her transformation to be slow, natural, and sustainable, something she could maintain for life rather than a temporary fix designed to silence critics. With support from her sister Pumpkin and her close friends, she made steady progress, learning how to take care of her body with compassion instead of punishment. She discovered that loving herself meant accepting her flaws, celebrating her strengths, and treating her body as something valuable rather than something to hide or feel ashamed of. This shift in mindset became one of the strongest pillars of her journey toward becoming the confident young woman she always wanted to be. Through all the ups and downs, the person who remained by Alana's side without fail was her sister Pumpkin, who became not only a guardian but also a mentor, a protector, and a best friend. Their bond strengthened with every challenge they faced together because Pumpkin had taken on responsibilities far beyond her years, and Alana never forgot the sacrifices her sister made to ensure she had stability during the most chaotic moments of their lives. They shared late-night talks, grocery store runs, hospital visits, and countless emotional breakdowns that only brought them closer as they navigated adulthood together. Alana admired Pumpkin's strength, and Pumpkin admired Alana's resilience, creating a relationship built on trust, honesty, and unconditional support. The two sisters formed a small but powerful team determined to build a better future for themselves and their families, no matter how difficult the journey became. This bond reminded Alana that family wasn't just about blood, it was about loyalty, love, and the people who show up for you even when the world feels unbearable. As Alana stepped further into young adulthood, she began understanding the double-edged nature of fame with greater clarity, because she realized that while fame offered opportunities, it also demanded sacrifices that most people never saw. She understood that any mistake she made would be magnified, and any moment of vulnerability could be twisted into a story for public entertainment. She knew that people who had never met her felt entitled to judge her life, her family, her decisions, and her future simply because she grew up on television. This awareness made her more cautious, more observant, and more careful about who she allowed into her inner circle because she can. Maturity and strength. Alana still longed for normalcy, a life where she could walk into a grocery store without being recognized, where she could sit in a classroom without whispers following her, and where she could simply exist without feeling watched every second. She dreamed of waking up in a world where she could just be another teenager worrying about simple things instead of navigating internet gossip, media narratives, and public expectations. She sometimes envied her peers who lived quieter lives, who had privacy, who could make mistakes without judgment, and who could learn about themselves away from the constant glare of public attention. She cherished the few rare moments when she felt unseen because those moments allowed her to breathe deeply and remember that she was more than the caricature the world had created. She imagined a future where college friendships, new appearances, and fresh surroundings would finally allow her to step outside of the Honey Boo Boo identity and life as Alana Thompson, unfiltered, unedited, and free. As she continued learning to stand up for herself, Alana began speaking more boldly about issues that mattered to her, using her platform not just for entertainment but for empowerment, awareness, and truth. She talked openly about body confidence, societal pressure, the emotional struggles of growing up in the public eye, and the importance of mental health because she wanted others to feel seen and understood. People were surprised by her wisdom, depth, and maturity because many had never looked past the child star image that overshadowed her growth. Her words resonated with young fans who also felt insecure, judged, or misunderstood, and her message became a source of comfort for those who needed encouragement. Alana realized that her voice had real influence, and she became determined to use it responsibly to uplift others instead of letting fame control her narrative. This newfound confidence strengthened her sense of purpose and helped her build a vision for her future that was rooted in leadership, authenticity, and compassion.